Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, my tech spidey sensors have been telling me lately that the COVID-19 pandemic is acting as somewhat of a digital accelerant, because I seem to be reading more and more about blockchain projects, big partnerships with household names such as PayPal, and at the time of recording this podcast, Bitcoin is heading towards $14,000 in value. And there's also an increase in market cap, and I'm getting more and more pictures from blockchain companies. And man, I'm getting flashbacks from November 2017. So as I start getting back into this space, I find myself learning more about ICON, which is one of the world's largest decentralized networks that's scalable for both public and private blockchain use cases. And ICON is used for real-world applications in everything from banking, healthcare, education, government, and so many more. So today I've invited Min Kim, who is a ICON project founder, onto the podcast. And I want Min to discuss how we can connect blockchain to the real world and how governments and institutions in almost every vertical you can imagine can integrate blockchain technology to deploy private and secure applications. And I'm also hoping Min will further expand on that by talking about real live use cases such as ICON's decentralized identity technology. So buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to California, where Min is waiting to speak with us right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, Neil. So my name is Min Kim. I'm the founder of the ICON project, which is the largest blockchain project and crypto project out of South Korea. And also, I guess, one of the largest in the world today. In 2017, we raised about $30 to $45 million USD to build an interoperable blockchain network that connects public and private chains. I sit on the board of the ICON Foundation, which is responsible to spearhead this project. And I help oversee the financial and operational activities. In the past 3 years, we've completed about 80% of what we set out to do. My job is to basically make sure we finish our job and make sure that the network becomes fully stable, self-sustainable, and decentralized within the next year or two. Not to say that we aren't decentralized today, but there's always room for improvements. So I've been working in finance and tech for about 15 years. I started my career as a tech banker in San Francisco, where it was amazing to work directly with some of the C-level executives in tech. We did IPOs, private placements, M&As, and so on. Then I became a tech entrepreneur because I wanted to be on the other side of the table. And then somehow my career led me into blockchain and crypto in 2015, which led me to launching the ICON project.
I love the path you took there, and that desire to want to be on the other side of the table. And it does feel like an incredibly exciting space again, almost like 2017, but I don't want to jinx anything, so we won't go there. But ICON is one of the world's largest decentralized networks, scalable for both public and private blockchain use cases. But we will have many people listening that are completely outside of the blockchain and crypto community that are often a little bit intimidated by this space. And one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is get everybody on that same page. And that's how we're going to increase adoption and drive it forward. But can you tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with technology, just for everybody listening?
You know, that's a great kind of a background. You're right. Blockchain is just a technology. Yeah. It's a very exciting technology, but it's useless unless it solves real world problems. ICON was born from working with some of the largest enterprises in South Korea. So here, before I go any further, I want to take a step back and explain that ICON is just an open source public blockchain network that anybody can use. When we talk about problems and use cases today, when I talk to you on this podcast, we'll be mainly talking about a company in South Korea called ICONLOOP that is driving some of these great use cases that are built on top of this ICON public network. So the big picture is that we try to solve big problems for enterprises. At the application level, we narrowed the problem down to digital identity. But of course, identity is also a very broad term. So to go into this a little bit further and to give a little bit more explanation, we live in a digital age today, but we still carry around physical IDs and other certificates that basically prove you are who you say you are. There are so many limitations and inefficiencies because we don't have a good digital identity solution. And when we talk to the enterprises and governments, this was the number one problem to all the other problems that they were having. For example, due to COVID-19 or coronavirus, in Korea, a lot of high schools and colleges had to mail out college diplomas for after graduation. They could even have a graduation. But if you think about it, like, why do we still have or give out physical diplomas today? If you think about it, companies and recruiters ask job candidates to provide digital proofs anyway. I mean, such as college transcripts or scanned versions of their diplomas in Korea. I don't know how it's done in the UK, but we don't really provide physical evidence of our education anymore. We try to do it digitally because everything is submitted through the internet. So, if you think about it, it's so much easier to have a digital diploma to begin with, which should be a part of your digital identity. So long story short, this is an example of exactly what we're trying to solve today. And once you solve the digital identity problem, there are a lot more problems that we can solve in the digital world, such as creating a world with less banks. I think this is sort of the ethos of cryptocurrencies. Being able to freely trade securities across globally at global scale, and so much more out there that we can do if we actually solve a digital identity problem first.
And I think what really stands out about what you guys are doing here is you have a broad spectrum of uses in applications across banking, healthcare, education, government, and many more, which I think's right. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but to bring all that to life and everything that you do, can you share any real world use cases that would just resonate with people listening?
Yes, exactly right. When we started a enterprise blockchain company back in 2016, this was before we decided to also create a public blockchain network. We were working with governments and enterprises, educating everyone about the blockchain technology, what it does. This is like back in the days when people were explaining what internet was, right? Yeah. So nobody knew what blockchain was. So we were working with our clients in the banking industry, healthcare industry, education industry, government, just doing small POCs. And at the end of the day, after a couple of years, what we realized was, one of the biggest problems that we have to solve is digital identity. So we decided to focus on that for not just one or the other, one industry, but for across all of these industries. So a few examples I will give you today is that at the end of August this year, our company ICONLOOP announced that one of the largest banks in Korea, Shinhan, is using blockchain for KYC authentication. We announced the first decentralized ID for the financial sector. The significance of this news is that now you can go through know your customer or KYC process with Shinhan, and you can use that KYC to open other accounts with other financial institutions. So when you want to open another bank account with another banking institution, you don't need to go through all that paperwork all over again of identifying yourself and all of that. When you get a insurance coverage premium, you don't need to go through that horrible process of KYC all over again, or a brokerage account. So, in that way, there's a lot of inefficiencies that we're solving in the financial sector. But the implications of this news is actually much larger, because this digital identity issued by banks has the potential to become Korea's primary national ID system. Because earlier this year, the Korean government ended its national ID system and allowed the private sector, such as us, to come up with a better system. So now there's a lot of competition coming into play with different identity service providers, and we're trying to all solve how to create a better digital identity. But banks naturally have the most credible ID system due to the tight KYC regulations that they've had for decades. And banks have all the customer information and all the KYC version of that, right? So what is advantageous for us is that ICONLOOP is the only company that is currently licensed to work with the banks to build this ID system. And basically, the goal is for millions of Korean citizens to have the opportunity to control their own identity and data in the digital world for the first time. Maybe the second example I'll give you is I think I've already briefly talked about college diplomas. Yeah. And recently, ICONLOOP announced that the largest job search company, Saramin, will begin using our blockchain, the ICON public blockchain, to add more credibility and transparency to the job candidate recruiting process. So I talked to you about the inefficiency of getting your physical diploma, scanning in and giving it to a recruiter, and recruiter needs to go back and verify this information before they send it out to companies. And that process is very inefficient. And we're solving this problem by being able to work directly with universities, work directly with companies and recruiters and job placement platforms to consolidate and integrate a blockchain solution so that you can verify these online and digital certificates, your diplomas instantaneously, so that it will make our world and our lives much more efficient.
And there has been so many big changes this year. And there will be people listening to this podcast, and I think it's like 165 countries at the moment. And for everybody listening, there will be a variety of track and trace COVID apps. Some will be centralized, some will be decentralized. And one of the things that I also read about you guys was that ICONLOOP helped launch a COVID-19 contact tracing app for a popular domestic tourist destination in Korea. I don't know. We'll go into that in a few moments. But can you tell listeners a little bit more about how the app uses ICONLOOP's digital identity solution and ties a person's verifiable credential to a record, and it's all stored in a highly secure private blockchain network?
So, yes, we've been helping Jeju government with COVID-19 contact tracing. Yeah. One thing I do want to mention is that this is not as strict as Shinhan's KYC version of identity. This is a tad bit lower with less restriction, because all you need to verify is a person's phone number and being able to do contact tracing. Yeah. But basically, the ICONLOOP also recently announced that the government of Jeju Island is using blockchain for COVID-19 contact tracing. And when you visit Jeju today, you are required to download an application and verify your phone number. About 15 million people visit Jeju Island every year. So we need to use a private blockchain for the most part to accommodate all the activities, because 15 million people is a lot of people. And, the blockchain technology today is not scalable enough to accommodate a lot of that transactions that come out of, 15 million people visiting one area. So when you download our identity app, and verify yourself, you are provided with a digital certificate. There's only one digital certificate on your phone, and the blockchain ensures that there are no duplicates, that there are no copies. You only have one, very similar to how you only have one copy of your driver's license, right? And you don't have multiple. So the digital certificate does not contain your personal information. It only has encoded, codes that verifies that that tells you that you are who you are. And when you visit various tourist destinations and restaurants in Jeju Island, you'll be asked to check in using a QR code, which is, in Asia, QR codes are used everywhere for many different reasons. The blockchain will record that you were there, but no personal information will be shared to the businesses. This is the very important part where we ensure privacy of each individual. So we don't necessarily track where everyone goes and does what, right? Yeah. But however, when there is a COVID outbreak, there is that way to trace you with your phone number, be able to notify you and tell you that an outbreak has happened in a restaurant that you were in. So please go see your, go get tested. Or there is a way for, the enforcement agencies to, track the phone number and see who you are and try to contact you and get in touch with you another way.
And the world of blockchain does move incredibly fast, and there are thousands of companies, and it can be hard keeping up to speed with things. But I did also recently read that you've secured a strategic partnership with the Conflux network to help expand your respective ecosystems and tap into that growing decentralized finance space. But can you expand on that news and what it will actually mean to the future of ICON?
Yes. So what I love about the blockchain industry is that we're small enough to try to learn from each other. Conflux is quite new, but has been doing extremely well in China. And we share a lot of similarity when it comes to being focused in working with the governments and the enterprises in our respective countries. So I think it was just natural for our teams to connect and think about, hey, we would love to share information of what you're doing on the blockchain adoption side. We would love to learn from you. So, that's how the information that's how kind of the relationship began. So our partnership outlines ways we can explore adoption of blockchain applications in the real world. We want to do joint marketing, educational campaigns such as online, offline events, and also do peer reviews and a lot of these other activities. So we don't have, I would say a strict plan of what we are going to do. And a lot of this is, due to the fact that we're still in Korea in a COVID world where we can't do too much, marketing or educational activities, get together and do events. So, Conflux, and we decided to, first establish a relationship, but we'll be talking about more tangible events and things to do, and ways to help each other in the future, probably next year.
And if we do have a business leader or a decision maker listening that has been intimidated by the world of blockchain and crypto until now, can you share insight on how governments and institutions in almost every vertical can integrate blockchain technology to deploy private and secure applications?
Oh man, this is a very, very tough question. And it's we talk to many enterprises and government organizations, and we try to convince them to give blockchain a try or to do a POC, and it's very challenging. So I would say start very small and start getting comfortable. try to set aside a small budget for a few POCs. That's what we do with a lot of these enterprises and governments. Blockchain can ensure a lot of features that your organization wants, but it takes time and some effort to find that. That's why we do a lot of POCs. However, many organizations tend to give up a little too early. That's our belief. I think it's important to continue exploring and try to productize some of these successful POCs and take it to the next level. Blockchain is going to be like the internet or cloud computing. You may not think you need it now, but everyone will be using it in the future one way or the other. So it's best to start early and to familiarize yourself with this new technology because there are so many opportunities and possibilities.
And the global pandemic this year has acted as almost a digital accelerant. And I am reading more and more about businesses such as PayPal and even banks beginning to embrace blockchain, crypto and digital payments, etc. But I'm curious, what kind of trends are you seeing in the industry right now?
I believe some of these are exactly the same ones that you're seeing. Yes. One of the largest banks in Singapore, DBS, just launched its own crypto exchange. I remember starting my career as an investment banker. And one thing I learned is that everyone uses precedents to justify their decisions. And this is because when something goes wrong, you have something to blame or someone to blame. I believe companies like Square, Robinhood, and even more traditional banks like Silvergate, Signature Bank, these guys are the real trailblazers. They set precedent for the banks to follow. And now, basically these banks are using these precedents to get in the game. Related to that, I would say one trend I like is how central bank digital currencies are blossoming. Again, China moved quite quickly, and now all the other countries are experimenting with it, which is great. And we are seeing the future already of CBDCs, with stablecoins like US dollar, Tether, or USDC. And stablecoins, if you're used to it, are so much more efficient than fiat currency. And I use stablecoins as much as fiat currencies today to make payments, to move money across, working with other global consultants and other companies. So it is such a much more efficient way to work with and do business with international companies. Another one I've been looking into is STOs or security tokens. I've been looking into security tokens for a while now. STO was hot a couple of years back until everyone realized that it was not. There were two main problems with STOs 2 years ago. First was the cost, and the second was this overblown expectations that the secondary liquidity or secondary market demand for security tokens were going to be like so big that it will make up for that cost. But everyone realized that that wasn't the case. The demand wasn't there. Nobody was that interested in security tokens. That there was like big assumptions. The costs have come down significantly over the 2 years. The tools that you see out there that can support a lot of these features that is needed in security tokens or for security tokens to be more active are better now. And third, investors are getting smarter too. They're realizing that crypto-backed real assets is a good way to diversify. And I've been talking to a lot of investors that are quite interested in something that has, cash flow or real assets backing their cryptocurrency or their tokens. So I think security tokens is going to come back maybe next year or the year after. And I think it's one of the trends to look out for.
And it really does feel like momentum is building in this space again. Like I said at the very beginning, I cautiously said it's slightly reminiscent of 2017. But is there anything that particularly excites you about the next 12 months?
Like everyone else, I would say DeFi is definitely super exciting.
Yeah.
But obviously, I won't get into that because everyone is excited about it. I'm actually quite excited about centralized finance, or CFI as well. I'm a big user experience guy, and CFI just has a better user experience, not just in crypto, but compared to even larger banks or mobile banks and so forth. In fact, at Icon, we're currently working on something there in this CFI that we plan to launch at the end of this year. I'm personally managing this project because I'm a finance guy. I love these type of projects. So we'll see how our product will do. And again, security tokens, like I said, I think the time has come. We've been keeping a close eye in security tokens over the past 3 years. We think the timing is right. So we're working on something there as well. I'm personally, again, managing a project around this, and I'm very excited about it. So we'll see where it goes.
And you guys also have my sympathy because it is an exciting space at the moment, but you are indeed caught between a rock and a hard place because you'll have a very passionate Reddit and Telegram community, no doubt, that are hungry for updates. But I appreciate you're probably locked down to NDAs. So I've got to ask, is there anything that you can share about the road ahead for Icon and your plans for 2021, or maybe just leave us with a few teasers before you go today?
Sure. I think I did talk a little bit about some of the things that we're working on, but I think this is interesting because we had our all hands meeting just last night, and we talked about our goals for 2021. Our goal for the technology side of things is actually quite simple. We want to complete the migration from a current Python-based version 1 of the Icon network to a Golang based version 2 of the Icon network. So we're actually in the middle of this huge migration process where we're upgrading our blockchain engine, which is much superior to what we currently have right now. So we will see a lot more stability, and we'll see a better security and better performance of our blockchain overall. The Icon Foundation, where I lead, is still very hands-on with the ecosystem development. But we'd like our network to be self-sustaining. And we want to get there by 2021, end of 2021, where the foundation could take a step back and other representatives of our network could take a step forward, so that this, what we are meant to do, and our goals for this network is to become more and more decentralized, to have more contributors from all around the world, to have different leaders at different time. So although this great project was started by the Icon Foundation and we're very hands-on today, but the goal is to become more decentralized and to be more hands-off in the future. And frankly, I want my team to transition to finally focusing on building real businesses and real use cases using the Icon blockchain, or this open source technology that we've been building for the past 3 years. So about 50% of our resource today go into development and the maintenance of the Icon network, whereas the other 50%, we're now starting to build interesting, businesses and, DeFi products, security token products. So we're doing a lot of exciting things, but we don't get to fully use all our resources into this because there's so much maintenance of the core blockchain and part that we need to take care of. So I want by the end of 2021, I want 90% of our time on building real businesses.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. But before I do let you go, if there is anybody listening that would like to find out more information, join your community, what's the best way of doing that? And also, if they want to contact your team, what's the best way of going around that?
Sure. So we're about to launch a new website called iconrepublic.org. So Icon Republic is just a term that we use to represent the Icon network. We call ourselves a digital nation. So please go to iconrepublic.org when it launches. I think quite soon. So I think that's where all the primary information will be. Also, icon.foundation is the where I'm at. It's the organization that's spearheaded this project. Icon.community, there's a lot of great information about there that talks about the network and token economics, and the forum is also there to ask questions. And then finally, we're very active. Our community is extremely active on Twitter and Telegram. My Twitter handle is Minho Kim, MINHOKIM, and the Icon Foundation's handle is Hello Icon World. Just shoot us a question, DM us if you have any comments. Thank you.
Well, I'll add all those links to the blog posts that will accompany this episode, just so people can find you nice and easily. But I'd love to stay in touch with you and see where this journey heads. We were both saying, though, it is an incredibly exciting space at the moment. 2020 has not been the greatest of years. So 2021, I'd love to meet you again and carry on this conversation we started today. But thanks for sharing everything with me.
Thank you. Yep, same here. I would love to come back and share more updates of how everything has been progressing.
Talking about blockchain is always incredibly difficult on a podcast because there will be community members attached to a project that will know it inside out and will just be interested in updates and partnerships. And then, of course, there is a huge amount of people scattered all over the world that almost feel locked out of the party, feel intimidated, or find the space confusing and even daunting. But I think we got the balance right today, and I hope there was something for everyone, whether you're a blockchain novice or an expert. Because for me, the key to adoption is getting everyone on the same page, regardless of your background. But as always, I'll leave my door open to you. If you want to shout about anything, you've got some passionate insights, you've got your own blockchain company that you want to shout about, or talk about alternative solutions by leveraging this technology, whatever it is, email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Keep those messages coming in. Hopefully I'll get to speak to you one-on-one on a future episode. If not, don't worry. All I ask is you join me again tomorrow where we'll talk about another technology and how it's transforming another industry. So thanks for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.